Hooray! Everybody's here. Oh, yeah.
Look, the gang's all here.
Hello, good sir. How are you?
Why am I the only
Glunz, how are you, buddy?
Good, Mike. How are you, buddy?
I'm fabulous.
He's already made a dent.
We're very excited.
Kyle, how are you, sir?
I am good, Joe. Thank you.
I can see the weather is terrible.
Just awful here. Just awful.
So somebody has a phone and a computer or two computers on. If you could just check to see that where that echo is coming from.
Okay. No, it's not me.
Kevin Bratt dressed up for the occasion.
Fancy.
See, I was going to do that.
Look,
I put pants on just in case.
What's up, Alec? I was just talking to Charles from Vineyard Brands about you a little bit ago.
Same. I was on a call with him maybe an hour ago.
Me too, man. How you been?
I'm doing all right, you know, keeping busy and getting used to early retirement.
Alec, you're a good one.
Practice.
Kevin, how are things with you? You at the? Looks like you're at work.
I'm at the restaurant, so I'll give you a little tour of the modified setup at Joe's. It's crazy. We're doing delivery and carry out up here. So I don't get dressed up like this at home, but I am working the phones at the restaurant and taking orders.
yeah.
Nice.
I like the beard, too. The beard's nice. Nice touch.
Yeah, I figured it makes it easier to wear these things.
Yeah, probably, actually.
How you doing, Kyle?
I'm good, Kev. Thanks for asking. We're in Los Angeles, staying out here, so it's not so bad.
Good.
Yeah. Making the best of it. It's an early morning start for me. Callum is, because he's in school in New York, where we were. So we're up at around 6 o'clock, getting ready for his Zoom school at 6:45. So.
Now it looks like it's sunny. As sunny as it is out there, Kyle.
Yes. Look at that.
I'm cheating though.
I was going to say, that doesn't look like Chicago right now.
It's a beautiful day here today.
Is it beautiful?
All things considered.
Very hot.
Warming up. My friend said
Gorgeous out.
They said it's like the temperature. They flipped the thermostat from snow 2 weeks ago or something like that. Everyone is just sweating and roasting. So
Just about.
crazy, a little crazy. You know what? I actually found a 2018 Rosé, Joe.
Say that again.
I found the 2018 Rosé, which I think was what we're going to be talking about. I have one bottle left in my cellar. So I'm curious to see how it's doing.
I had it just the other night with my wife, and it's tasting beautiful.
Let me know if you need to borrow any from my cellar.
I'd love to get more. To be honest, I would. We're all out here, but oh, that honeysuckle is really nice.
Well, everybody has I would imagine, well, the one tough thing with the virtual background is the bottle all of a sudden disappeared.
Disappointing.
I saw that. I shared that with Dan Wamfler, and he thought it was a fantastic idea. They couldn't believe it. Yeah, the trouble you went. So thank you very, very much. Went above and beyond.
All right, so I'm going to ask everybody to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and mute.
Okay.
And hopefully, if you have a question, you can raise your hand virtually. And I'll go ahead and unmute you, or you can ask questions within the chat. There you go.
Okay.
All right, sir.
Make it be more.
The gang's all here. Look at see my big face. On
Huge.
Next time I got to figure out a way to get these balls. They're here. They're just hidden away. They're hibernating.
Kyle, you just need to unmute
There we
yourself.
go. I'm unmuted now, I think.
All right, everybody else is muted and you're on, sir.
Well, good, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and allowing me the chance to talk a little bit about Pursued by Bear. Joe, step in. Is everyone kind of familiar with the brand and with my story, or shall I do a quick recap? Or
Kyle, there's no reason to not give a refresher course.
okay, very cool. So, so I'm from Eastern Washington. I grew up in Yakima, Washington, which has become part of the Columbia AVA. Of course, when I was a kid, we didn't have wine there. Well, we had wine that my parents drank, but it was Paul Masson and Almadine and Blue Nun, all the stuff that we all grew up with. So that's where I cut my teeth. But I didn't really figure out the whole wine world until I guess it was the late 1990s when my sister-in-law began talking about stuff that was happening and coming out of Washington State. And I got interested because I've always been interested in wine. Living in Los Angeles, of course, Napa Valley, the close proximity to Napa Valley and going up there. And it became a passion of mine. And to the point where I actually considered making it in Napa for about 2 seconds until I realized how cost prohibitive it was. And it really brought me back to the idea of doing something in Washington State. A couple reasons. One was more of a family thing, which was spend more time with my dad, who still lived in Yakima at the time. And I wanted to have an excuse to go back and visit him and spend time with him. And I thought this would be a great way to share this journey, which we did. We did for a number of years. He finally passed away in 2011, but he was able to see what I was going through and what I was doing. And that goes for my brothers as well. So it was really a family mission that was spearheaded by me, and really a chance encounter with a winemaker in Walla Walla named Eric Dunham of Dunham Cellars. You may be familiar with Eric. He was really responsible for bringing me in and making it possible for me to do a custom crush of my very first wine in 2005 called Pursued by Bear. So I owe him a great deal of thanks. And in fact, I still custom crush at his facilities, although I'm going to be making a move now, probably the end of this year, to Abeja, where my new winemaker, well, actually not a new winemaker, even doing it since 2008, actually, starting out at Dunham, Dan Wampfler is now going to be making my wine at Abeja at their new facilities, which they're in the process of building this giant new building to house not only the Abeja wines, but also I'll have a little corner of my own there. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. It'll be, right under Dan's direct eye. The past few years have been fine. I've been working with Rob Campisi, who at Dunham, who is Dan's protege, really, and so they speak together all the time, very, very close contact. I speak with Rob. He's a great guy, and he's been overseeing this with Dan's tutelage, the journey, the Bear journey, as I've expanded now. So anyway, we started back in 2005 with Pursued by Bear. I like to tell the story that Eric, when he asked me what I'd like to drink, I said, I like to drink Cabernet. And he said, well, let's make Cabernet. And I said, well, that sounds good to me. So it was just pretty much that simple going forward. And then we, of course, branched out from there. The name is a reference to a Shakespeare play. I wanted my first wine to at least reference my day job, what I call my day job, as an actor. And in The Winter's Tale, in Act 3, Scene 3 of Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale, there's a stage direction that goes, exit pursued by a bear. And indeed, a bear comes on stage and chases the actor who's been speaking, doing a soliloquy off the stage. And in the following scene, another group comes on saying, gee, that poor fellow, he sure met an untimely end. They found his half-eaten corpse, I think, off stage somewhere. So he meets a bad end. But I just love the stage direction. It's the most specific, the most esoteric, unusual stage direction that he's ever done. And so I borrowed from, they say borrow from the best. So we called it Pursued by Bear. I also thought it would stick in people's mind. They might not get it exactly right, but it would be something with the bear and something to do with chased or running after or something. And that would at least get them in the right field. So that started in 2005. We started with the blend in the original, which was a Cabernet Merlot Syrah. So Cab dominant, of course, small percentage of Merlot, and even smaller percentage of Syrah. And that's how we started with the 05. And that carried through all the way, I think, until the 11 and 12, I think, when I phased out the Syrah in an effort to move towards a more traditional Bordeaux style. So right now, the Pursuit by Bear is a Cabernet Merlot blend, still cab heavy, from a number of wonderful vineyards in Washington State that I, over the years, have been able to meet the owners, get connected with them, get to know their families, and in some cases, I've had them from the very beginning. I'm thinking of particularly of Hugh Shields' vineyard, De Brule, which is in the Yakima AVA, very close to Rattlesnake Hills. It's above a little town called Prosser, and he just grows beautiful fruit there, very low yielding, very small berries. It's on a slope, gentle slope, south facing, and the air currents there are really helpful because it can be quite warm in the Yakima Valley, and this helps cool the grapes off. So he's been a constant since he finally allowed me to buy grapes from his vineyard, which was it was a long battle before he finally gave in. And now I source both Cabernet and Merlot from his vineyard. So that's in the current Pursuit by Bear. I mean, I think we could maybe start off with the Rosé, Joe, and maybe taste a little. That seems to be the most obvious choice.
Absolutely.
So this is I believe it's the 2018 is what you've got, and this is what I have here, Blushing Bear Rosé. This was kind of me jumping on the Rosé bandwagon, but I wanted to be real specific about how I did it, and that was basically to copy the French. So I borrow from Shakespeare, I copy the French. You're sensing a pattern here. I love Bandol Rosé. And so when I spoke with my winemaker, Dan, I said, I'd like to make rosé, but this is how I want to do it. Can we find these varietals? And he was like, no problem. And he reached out to a couple of growers, and we found the Grenache, and we found the Mourvèdre, and we found, in this particular, the 2018, Cinsault as well, from Stone Tree. So these three varietals grow really well in Washington State. We source them from a couple of vineyards. Stone Tree is Wallula, but the Kenny Hill and the Los Oídos, which is a funny story with Los Oídos, that means the ears in Spanish. And of course, the gentleman who owns that vineyard is an ear doctor. So yeah, sense of humor in Walla Walla runs rampant. Anyway, he does those great fruit. Kenny Hart is the vineyard manager on that. He does a beautiful job. He's a vineyard manager on the Kenny Hill as well, where we source. So I said, let's make it like the French do. And 2015 was our first vintage, and we had 75 cases. So we were definitely just so excited. We worried about selling through that. It was a nice beginning, and I saw that we had a terrific promise. We've of course gone up in production since then, but we've really focused on trying to get the color exactly right. This is whole cluster pressed, and really just very slowly pressed and drained immediately off the skin. So this color has just a few hours of skin contact, and it goes into fermenter 10 to 14 days later. It goes into stainless steel. We use a little bit of neutral oak as well. I think it just enhances the mouthfeel, and honestly makes it age worthy. I think that's a quality of the vineyard as well. But this is 2018, and it's drinking, I think, just beautifully. It has that bright acid, which is really one of the hallmarks of Washington State. I mentioned those cool breezes that come in through most of the vineyards during the evening and nighttime, because the days get quite hot. And these cool breezes, either off the ocean, or they come off the river, off the Columbia River, or they come off from the valley and creep their way up, are responsible for cooling down the vineyard and giving this beautiful bright acid quality. She's got a really great mouthfeel, good finish, I think, stays around. And I like the rosé to be not super cold. I think you can do it super cold, but I think cellar or a little bit less, and then you really get the aromatics out of it, and the flavors just come alive. So. That's really easy drinking.
It's always difficult when you're drinking or tasting, sorry, with a group of 30 of your favorite friends and nobody's talking and you're the only one talking. But if anybody has questions, please throw them in the chat and we'll go ahead and try to get those. I'll throw them to you, Kyle, so you don't have to worry about
Two things at
watching
once.
and reading.
Patting my head, rubbing my stomach, but they're drinking and
Not
drinking and
possible for
talking at
me,
the same time. Very difficult for me.
especially with a computer in front of you.
So the blushing bear, Rosy, I've had the same. I'll do a quick little label chat. So the lady that does that did my Pursued by Bear. Here's the Pursued. Also, she does all my labels. So she does the she did the blushing bear as well. And her name is Caroline Church, and she lives in Richmond, just outside London. She does an interesting process where she'll take, I think it's called reverse, I can't remember the name of it, but she takes a blank piece of wax paper and scrapes away the black, leaving the white. So it gives it kind of a woodcut style, which I really like. And she's just, I think, exceptional. She's done a wonderful job. So I've gone back to her for all of my label work. And I actually give her a little credit on the back of each label. Just because I'm so pleased with what she's done. So enjoy that.
So Kyle, I've got a quick question for you from Alec. It's, is using more Mourvedre than the Grenache an availability issue, or is that a winemaking preference?
You know, it comes down to what we get, actually. And that percentage changes, you know, ideally 50-50, but it never is 50-50. It always fluctuates a little bit. And I think, I don't know, I like leading with the Mourvedre. I think it actually works. But that is, we're not wedded to that. So those percentages change each year. I'll tell you what has changed between the 18 and the 19 is in 19, the Cinsault, which we sourced from Stone Tree, had a little bit of smoke taint from a brush fire. You know, you got to remember these vineyards are right next to basically sagebrush. There's nothing out there. And so there was a fire that was adjacent to that one vineyard that in Stone Tree. So that year we weren't able to get the Cinsault. And I said, well, we'll just go with the Mourvedre and Grenache. And to be honest, I love that rosé as well. Sometimes these things come at you and you turn lemons into lemonade. And in this case, I think it actually was a great way to learn what it's like without the Cinsault component. So we may continue with just the Grenache and the Mourvedre. The nice thing about that too is that because I source from Los Oídos and Kenny Hill, they are both Walla Walla AVA. So this rosé could actually be classified as a Walla Walla AVA, which I think Walla Walla is gaining a little more prestige, and so that would be nice to put that on the label. I might do that next year.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so moving to the Cub. Should we do the new one first, or?
I'd say let's do the Cub Bear.
Let's do the Cub Bear. Okay.
Although
So
I'm supposed to change my background for this one.
yeah, you gotta keep up, Joe.
Only appropriate that
I love
switch
it.
background.
This is a man who prepares.
If only we could be out there doing this on the
Man, this would be
bleachers.
perfect. So this is the newest addition to the clan of the bear, Bear Cub. And he is also done by Caroline Church, and just about the cutest little face you've ever seen. And the idea behind this came out of desperation, actually. 2016, which is the first vintage for this, was an abundant year, big yields coming off the vineyards. And it was also the year when I made my departure from Dunham as a partner. We had a partnership, and I severed the partnership. It was all amicable. And I said, it's time for me to sort of step up and put on my big boy pants and own this company. So that's what I did. And as part of that excitement, I began saying yes when Dan, my winemaker, would come to me with, hey, we have this vineyard that's available to us. What do you think? And I'd be like, yeah, let's try it and see what it does. So I became like a mad scientist, and I brought in a lot more tonnage than I had previously. And that shows you that I'm not a businessman. and not thinking through. But it left us with a huge amount of wine, and I was like, well, we'll figure something out. We'll make more Pursued by Bear, or, what's a problem for down the road? I've since learned the error of that kind of thinking. But what happened was I was left with a lot of wine that I really didn't have a place for. In fact, so much wine, so many grapes were coming in, they were trying to figure out where to put it all just to hold it. Bathtubs, sinks, everything was happening. So we didn't use those exactly, but it felt like it. So anyway, I was sitting on this juice for a long time, thinking about the bulk market. I finally decided, really, I didn't want to let it go. That was the other thing. I felt very, I'm very proprietary to this stuff. This is my juice, and this is juice that has been sitting in Terranceau barrels. And this is juice that I brought in, and I don't want to send it away. So ultimately I said, I'm going to have to make a wine. We're going to have to bite the bullet. Let's do this. We're going to lower the cost on it. We'll position it in the market as an entry-level wine, even though it's $35. It's not the most entry-level wines, but it certainly is when you compare it to the Pursued. And I said, and the last kind of stroke of, I'm not going to say it was a stroke of genius, but it was an interesting thought, was why don't we take us back to the original Pursued by Bear? So let's put a little Syrah in there and go back to the original blend, which I had left years ago. And that'll be the story. So as you can see, we sort of, happy accident, made it up as we went along. And what we've got here, I think, is just a really beautiful expression of what the Pursued by Bear used to be, but now is the Cub. That's so nice. We've already got I think Enthusiast gave it a 91, which is great. I was hesitant to rate it, but I thought, I'm so excited about it, why not? Let's see what the numbers are. So the aging profile on this is very similar to the Pursued. It's long barrel, 28, 30 months. I think I'm trying to think of how long we kept this, but it was a long time in barrel, maybe 3 years. It might've been 36 months.
It's going to be hard to keep up with that.
I mean, I agree. This is in the pipeline for 3 years though, 16, 17, and 18, and 19 are all going to be, this is what we got coming.
So great.
Roughly
Fantastic.
like 900 cases, give or take. And so this was fruit that didn't get into the original blend. So the Pursued by Bear is primarily Dionysus, Dubrul, of course, Dionysus, Heather Hill, vineyards that really stand out to me. And this one has got some others that I didn't think were, at the time, I didn't think were quite there, although tasting it in here, I'm having second thoughts. But Clipson being one of the vineyards that I backed out of that contract, and this is the last year that I have of that. Primarily because I felt that the vineyard was too erratic. So one year the Merlot was okay, the Cab was great. Next year the Merlot was great, Cab was not so good. So I was, and they had sold Patricia Gellis, who owns that vineyard, had sold it, and I don't know, I just got nervous. So I backed out of that one. It also has some Summit View in it. It also has a little bit of, I borrowed from Heather Hill, I borrowed from Dionysus, I've got some Wallula, and I've got some Winebow in here. So it's sourced from like 6 vineyards or 7 vineyards. And the Syrah that I use comes from Finney. It's the same Syrah source that I use for my Baby Bear. But I just think that Syrah makes it really approachable. The aromatics on it are great. This feels to me like, the other idea is to have a wine that's a little bit lower price point wine, just to get it into the market, into places where the Pursued, you can't pour the Pursued by the glass, but something like this, you might be able to get this on the menu if we work on the price. And also the Blushing Bear Rosé as well. So, wow. And I think it's those barrels that give it because the tannins are super fine, and these are very, very tight grained barrels, very thick stave. Which I found over the years as we pushed the aging profile from 22 to 24 to 20, now up to 32 months. I think we're going to back off the Pursued. It would be about 28 months. That seems to be a pretty good spot. It also allows me to get it to the market in time.
I think the tannins are pretty substantial, but they're rounded and soft and long. And really, that's going to allow the wine not only to age considerably, but just adds to that complexity in the layers. And
Thank
then on the even better side, allowing it to go really well with food, matching up beautifully with that acidity.
Thank you. I think that's, again, that one of the things about that Washington acidity, you know, it really does work, particularly in a town like Chicago where you've got steaks and, you know, known for it being a meat forward, you know, and I think that these wines work really, really well. In some cases better than California simply because of the acid that are in them that cuts through the fat. So, great. So that's our little bear cub. Yeah, we're really excited about him. The next one is, you know, we could go right to the Pursued, and then we could kind of compare the difference.
Sounds like a great plan.
It's a plan. I just made it up. Okay, 2016 Pursued. This is Cab Merlot. I don't remember the numbers. Is it 8317, or I think it's on the sheet. I don't know if anyone has the sheets, but it's somewhere in there. See if I've got it written down here. No. Wow. That's nice. So this is fruit from Du Brul, as I mentioned before, and also a vineyard, Dionysus Vineyard, which is part of the Sagemore group. They've got 5 different vineyards that they oversee, and they are up in basically it's the Columbia AVA. It's north of an area called the Tri-Cities. It's very close to the Wahluke slope, which is kind of above again the Tri-Cities, on the edge of the Columbia River. But not on the border between Oregon and Washington, a little further up. So Dionysus is one of my sources, as well as Heather Hill. Heather Hill is a vineyard that came to me through Dan, actually. Abeja uses a lot of Heather Hill, and I tasted it and I just fell in love with it. It's a beautiful, it's sort of Walla Walla AVA. It's on the southern part, sort of near the border of Oregon. Not far from the area they call the Rocks, but it's actually up on the hillside.
And Kyle, I did want to let you know, everybody with their tasting kits received full tech sheets on all these. So we're all going to be judging whether you know your wines or not.
I'll get most of it right. There'll be a few things though. That's just kind of beautiful and young. And again, those Washington black cherry stone fruits, the acid, of course, the brightness. Beautiful tannins that are there, but soft. Super approachable, but I think can sit down for a couple of years. I still got some 05 in my cellar that I go into occasionally, and it's still nice. It's lightened a little bit, but it's still drinking really beautifully.
You can bring that for your next visit.
Yeah, so I will. I'll pack a bottle or two. That would be nice. Well, it's very nice.
Yeah, the intensity of the fruit is very nice, really upfront, but it's got, again, that great acidity, which is just fantastic. The tannins are definitely medium plus on there, and just really well integrated for as young as it is. But I think it's, again, going to age beautifully. That being said, I think most of the people in the crowd are restaurateurs. You know, aged well enough now to go easily with some good food.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice. Sometimes it's nice to have. I've done it in a couple cases. I have a few little libraries left. You know, like a little mini vertical if people are interested or they want to compare. But these are great. They are on a list.
Saying that in this crew, I think we're going to get some call outs on some verticals here.
There you go. There you go. We work to accommodate.
So we did have Alec responded is 90-10 on the percentages.
Nice.
Or at least that's what's written on the tech sheet. So
But
somebody in marketing thinks that.
You want to believe Dan Wampler? Okay, we'll go with 90-10. That's perfect. Thank you. Dan doing his homework. I love it. Okay. I think people know this, but I know that the De Brule Vineyard has won a couple of best vineyards of Washington State. A couple of years, I think it was 09, sort of early on, but Hugh Shields, who is the grower there. And as you can tell, this is a vineyard that is maybe my favorite of all, but don't tell Hugh that because he'll just raise the price on me. But it's my favorite vineyard. Consistently brings in fruit that is, in terms of aroma and flavor, more intense than almost all the other vineyards. You know, the flavor profiles are similar when you first get them, when you're doing the blending. But it's consistently the one where when you pull the lid off and you do the smell, it's right there. It's very immediate and really satisfying. Okay. Let's go to where am I my glass? The Baby Bear Syrah. I need a platform, Joe. I need a stand here.
I'll be right over.
Thank you very much. And then we can go for a swim. Okay. Baby Bear Syrah. So Baby Bear was born in 2008, happened to be the same year my son was born. That's how we came to be Baby Bear. The story is, you know, Eric Dunham again, who was influential on this. In fact, it was Eric. I met Eric because I wanted to pour his Syrah when I was married in 2002, and he had a single vineyard, Lewis Vineyard Syrah, that was recognized, which was not available, but it led me to him, and he was known for his Syrah. So while I was excited to make Syrah with him, I also wanted to make it so it was distinguishable from his. And so what we did is we used the same sources, but I changed the barrel profile. So we used the 600-liter puncheon barrels to age this, all new oak, all Terranceau, beautiful big barrels, very expensive big barrels. But we use, and we've kind of, we play with them. Sometimes we do all new, sometimes we put in one experienced oak, as my winemaker Dan says, which I like that phrase. That's very nice. And that was the difference. And did the same thing with this. So we've pushed the barrel age up to 32 months in these giant barrels. You know, the large barrel idea is that you have more liquid, more volume to surface area on the oak. But I think it produces this exceptional Syrah. It's hard to make a bad Syrah in Washington. If you make a bad Syrah, you don't know what you're doing because the grape does so well up there. And this is a blend of two vineyards. So this is Lewis and Finney. Lewis is, again, a Columbia, kind of rattlesnake adjacent, not too far from the De Brule Vineyard, actually, and one that the Dunham family uses extensively. So I get some fruit from there. And then Finney Hill, which is, Finney Hill is over in Horseheaven. So that's further south, kind of just above the Columbia River, not too far from the very famous Shampoo Vineyard. It's French spelling. It's actually up the hill a little bit and across the street. And Horseheaven is a just extraordinary place to have vines. They've got a lot of wineries that source from these guys. So those are the two vineyards. Wow. And we've never changed it. It's always been those two vineyards. Usually 4 barrels, sometimes 5. One is always neutral of the Terranceau, and that's what goes into the Syrah. Wow. You know, it's sometimes, I mean, it's not so hard in the Northwest to get people to bite on Syrah. It's a little more challenging as you head to the east, but I find that once people have tried it or sampled it, they remember, and they're not so scared the next time. It also happens to be a Syrah that I like. It's rich. It's got great cherry flavors. It's not, you know, not too peppery. It's
got like that coffee toast, a little bit of cocoa.
Definitely the cocoa. The other thing that we do on this is we take a barrel and we do sur lees with one of the barrels. So we keep the lees in the barrel. on one of the puncheons, and we basically just turn it and let the leaves filter down through, which is the cocoa that you feel, and I think also the mouthfeel. It gives it this beautiful round mouthfeel. And that was something that I discovered. They were doing a barrel tasting at Dunham way back when I first started, and they had this. They were pulling out of the barrel for this tasting, and I went over and I said, "What the heck?" You know, and I want to know. And they said, "Well, this is the Surly's barrel," and they explained what it was. And I said, "That's what we're doing that next time on one of these barrels because I think it just contributes so much." So,
what does that contribute flavor profile wise, and how long does that continue to go through Surly?
It's the full term of the barrel. I think it gives as you mentioned, the chocolate, the mocha, and also the mouthfeel of it. It just kind of rounds it out and fills it out. That's what I get from it. And we do it just on one, so it's not. I think it would be too much if we did all of them, but because this is we haven't changed it that much. It's really 4 barrels. Again, sometimes one is neutral. Sometimes we do 4 new, 1 neutral, depending on how much I produce. Syrah, it's one of those, it goes up and down. It's a difficult wine to move. So production, I can adjust down a little bit. And I source, so I say to Dunham, basically, can I have this much? Or if I'm going to reduce it, I say, can I have this much? So I don't, I'm not obligated. I don't have the contract with the Lewis or the Finney folks. It comes through Dunham, and I basically buy it from them. It's beautiful. It's really warm, nice, round, perfect. And this is water. Because I've not been.
We don't call our vodka and gin.
Thank you very much, Joe. You're right. This one doesn't.
The length on this is just spectacular.
It's just a beautiful wine. And it came, the 2008 was our first vintage. We didn't change anything. I just we let it do its thing. We've lengthened the barrel age on it, but it's the same 2 vineyards. We got a little stone tree that we brought in for this, which enhanced, gave it a little bit of extra, but Dan was saying, do we really need the stone tree? I think he was complaining because stone tree is a pretty good drive for him to go taste and sample. He would rather not have to drive up to stone tree. And I'm like, nah, we don't need it. I think, what the heck is what we have going is pretty great. Is that Walla Walla water? Well, it's Los Angeles water, but it's filtered.
You got to start importing your water from Washington.
It's a good idea. Walla Walla, for those who don't know, Walla Walla means many waters or some kind of variation of that. Although it turns out that Wallula also means many waters. So I'm like, I don't know who's telling the truth here, or if there's just sort of a vague kind of, the Native Americans, it's sort of like, yeah, we can call that many waters too, or that could be many waters, or I don't know. It's all,
everybody has the right to their own story, right?
Exactly right. Who's going to question those guys?
When it's yours, own it.
Exactly.
Very good. Do we have any questions for Kyle about wines and these vintages, coming vintages,
or
his
show?
Next visit.
Come to Walla Walla. I'm hoping for a tasting room. I have the space, but we had to stop production on it because of the virus. So the build out. So maybe in the fall, although I think that's a little ambitious. Probably next year.
Mike, did you have a question?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was curious. What I was just kind of typing in is, Delilah's, as we're not a food place, tavern driven. What we found with the rosé and with the Syrah, the rosé was on feature by the glass, and so what we were seeing is people they're gravitating towards it, they're trying it, and it's not a question of does it go well with food. Moving forward, are you looking to create other blends or release other varietals, and will the approach continue to be standalone, pairs well with a glass, and what you mentioned earlier about Chicago and steaks and stuff. But again, what we've seen since we first started tasting the wines with you was my team and I were looking at the wines like, we're not trying to decide, are they going to pair well? We want to know, are they going to pair well with a good time? And that's our primary focus. So moving forward, if you're creating more blends or offering more varietals, will they continue to go in the direction of stand on their own and not need a food component?
Right. I think no real plans, although I will say that I'm getting very curious about finding a white varietal to work with, and I've had some of Dan's Semillon. Actually, his wife Amy makes this Semillon, and it's magnificent. And the only reason I hesitate is because, again, if it doesn't say Chardonnay, it's more difficult to move. And this is a conversation that Joe, you and I could have to talk about. This kind of works, this doesn't work in the market, because I'm curious about that. But I love the Semillon from Washington State. I think that's extraordinary. And Dan and Amy do a wonderful job. The other thing I've been just toying with, and this is really in the infant stages. When I started, I met a winemaker named Ann Colgan, Colgan Cellars. And when I met Ann, who over the years became a mentor to me, and we're friends, and I just can't say enough nice things about her. She makes extraordinary wine, of course. But when I met her, her winemaker was a guy named Mark Aubert, who now, of course, has his own winery, makes extraordinary whites and Pinots that I really, really like. I like a little richer, heartier Pinot. Anyway, and I thought, if I were to go into the white world, first of all, I would like to chase the white Burgundy. You know what I mean? It's like, who doesn't want to chase white Burgundy? Can we find something that approximates that, maybe the Washington version of that, in Oregon, in a cooler climate? But again, I haven't even started my research, but I'm thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be cool to do a partnership with Mark Aubert? He's got the right name, for God's sake, Aubert. I said, this could be a no-brainer, and I'm friends with him, and we talk about this from time to time, but we haven't really made any commitments to each other yet. So, but that's definitely percolating at the perimeter for something that maybe as you said, that maybe is a little lighter, perhaps easier to sit down to, something that you can sidle up to. Maybe it's not quite so powerful.
We have another question here, Kyle, from Alex Bassett, which I'm unmute. Oh, you're unmuted.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. We appreciate this tasting. This is awesome, amazing stuff. I'm off premise, and I love your Syrah. I sell it to the steak eaters in town because it obviously pairs well. Great. But if I could suggest, yes, a reasonably priced white from y'all would be fantastic. And Semillon would sell in an off-premise environment if it was under $25. But my question to you is, really, are you in the next Dune movie?
I wish I could say yes. Sadly, the director, Mr. Villeneuve, did not reach out, which I understand. I think he didn't want to have any kind of association or something that might throw the focus into a different place. But I am looking forward to seeing it. I'm a huge fan. I was a fan of the books. I've read the book when I was 15, given to me by my friend Jim Lumblad, who I remind and tease about, and just really was a very important book for me growing up. And then,
me too.
You turn 23 and you get a call on your Panasonic answering machine that had the little tape. Someone's in Seattle and they're meeting actors for the role of Paul in Dune, and I'm going, somebody is pulling my leg. And it turned out to be legit, and that's how the journey started. Literally, my Panasonic answering machine in my little apartment in the University District in Seattle. And I like to say I wasn't plucked from relative obscurity. I was plucked from complete obscurity.
Oh, you've done pretty well for yourself. We appreciate it. Thank you. I honestly, I don't tell a lot of people that it's your wine, but when I do, they definitely perk up and they're like, and want to try something. And I've been to Walla Walla, and you do definitely represent those wines. It's just, there's a really great, and the Bear Cub, I think, is perfect for us, for retail. We need something at that price point that we can sell on a consistent basis. And that it was super smooth.
Great. Yeah, it's a quality wine. I think over delivers a little bit, but it's just so great. And we're going to keep doing that. I want that baby to be really strong and good, So thank you, Alex.
No, thank you.
All right. Do we have any other questions out there for Kyle?
While I'm
Well,
floating.
Kyle, I don't see any other questions out there, but I wanted to say thank you very much for the time, the opportunity, and it is not only a great opportunity to see you and be able to spend this time with you, but to enjoy your wines and be able to represent them here in Illinois. It's just fantastic to see somebody with many passions and definitely see them come through in the different works that you do. And definitely on this one, the wine is showing that passion, and we thank you.
I appreciate that, Joe. And I'm so proud and happy to be represented by you out there. The whole point of this is the people, you know what I mean? And that started in Walla Walla with the very beginning. And then as my distribution sort of expanded, really important to me that the people that I deal with, wherever it is, and there's not that many places, but certainly in Illinois with you, it's exactly what I was looking for. It's a family. We're friends. That's the way it works for me. So I'm very, very grateful that you have got the wines and that you are so supportive of them. So much appreciation.
Absolutely. We'll partially blame that on Kevin Bratt.
Yeah, he's definitely to blame, and we'll have to figure out some kind of torture for him. So.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, thank you all very much for coming, and we will hopefully see you in the next one.
Thanks, everybody. Okay.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Changi.